Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robin Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
Good afternoon. It's 12:05. Welcome to Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. I'm Robin Flynn. We're with you until 1 p.m. Joined in studio, as usual, by the experts, LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. What's up, LJ?
How you doing?
Very good. Fred Pichette from Fred and Martin Mortgages. Hey, Fred, how are you?
Very well. Yourself, Robin?
I didn't get the memo that we were wearing white dress shirts today. Both of you match, and I'm wearing green leopard print, like a complete polar opposite to what you guys are wearing.
You have it figured out.
Yeah, obviously. I like to stand out and not be part of the crowd, you know.
You keep the green of last week for St. Patrick.
Exactly, for St. Patrick's Day. I am Irish, so, keep it going all year round. Let's kick things off with our trivia question of the week. You were just listening to the trivia show, so you're already in the mood. You're already primed to answer some questions. Our question is brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. You can visit their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center, 3705 St. John's Boulevard in DDO. If you are the first person to text in the correct response with your name to 514-800, you will receive delicious Felix and Norton cookies delivered straight to your door. I know you stopped by the store this week, didn't you, LJ? I saw on your Instagram stories.
I did. I was there yesterday. I picked up a nice little box of 12 for my in-laws.
Ooh, and I'm sure that it went over very well.
Went over great.
Gotta keep the in-laws happy.
Oh, yeah.
Happy in-laws, happy life is how it goes. Our question this week: which agency in Quebec is responsible for enforcing the province's residential tenancy laws? We want the new name. There's an old name this agency used to go by. I don't know when they changed the name. It feels fairly recent.
2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah. So we want the new name for this agency. Which agency in Quebec is responsible for enforcing the province's residential tenancy laws? If you think you know the answer, 514-800, and do include your name. Guys, let's start talking by some stuff that was in the news this week. Interest rates. That's on everybody's mind and has been on everybody's mind for a while now. I read an article that said this summer could finally be the time when interest rates start coming down. What do you guys think?
Well, I had a chance this week to read a few articles in the newspapers, and a lot of economists point out that the first rate cut will probably come in June, which is, I know a lot of people were saying maybe April, maybe June, July, but it really seems that inflation is going down again a little bit, not that much. But I think we're off for the first rate cut in June, to be honest.
LJ, what do you think?
I think it's looking like that. My initial bid or prediction was July. I think that's what we were looking for. But I think I read that 75% of economists are now on board with a June reduction in the rate. So I think that's definitely the way we're heading right now.
And what is going to happen when they're obviously not going to cut interest rates by 2%. It's going to go down in small increments. What sort of impact will such a small cut have on housing, for example? Are we going to see the market get flooded all of a sudden?
So, as most people usually say, the Bank of Canada will always take the elevator on the way up and it'll take the stairs on the way down. So it's very slow on the way down compared to how quickly we went up. I think we're expecting it to be probably 25 basis points this drop. So it's really not going to be a significant amount. It'll be more so a sign of we're going to start going in that direction, which is a good sign to everybody. It's not going to flood the market. That's not what's going to make a huge difference. 25 basis points isn't make or break for anybody. When you do the calculation, and Fred will run us through that in a little bit, it's really not going to be that impactful, but it's more so from a consumer confidence perspective. We're now going back to lower interest rates. We're now ready to cool off on the tightening that we've been doing. And in such, obviously anybody on a variable mortgage, yourself, myself, are going to be happy to take any reduction that we have right now. Obviously, we're going to very much welcome it. But it's more so a consumer confidence thing until we get to probably a 100 basis points, that 1% drop that maybe by the end of the year, like Fred predicted.
I totally agree with Helgi, because I had a discussion this week and a couple of weeks ago with many of my clients. They were saying, Fred, what should I do? Should I wait? I says, no, guys. If we have a rate cut, it probably will be by 0.25 basis points only. And if you do a quick calculation, I don't want to lost anybody here, but if you calculate a mortgage at $400,000 at 4.99, the monthly payment is $2,336. If you do the same comparison with a rate of 475, the monthly payment is 2,278, which is $58 of difference. This is nothing. Like,
That's going to the movies these days. That's 2 tickets to the movies and a popcorn if you're lucky.
I don't think you get
on
the
a
popcorn
Tuesday. If you go on GP Tuesday, hey, I see that as like a tank of gas, or whatever, renting a movie and staying home. But I'll take it, to be honest. I know in the grand scheme of things, $58 doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're...
I'd rather it in my pocket than theirs.
Yes.
That's kind of the perspective, right? So.
Absolutely. Nothing's changed. It's not like you're getting $58 less of house.
No, but if you're a first-time home buyer and you're waiting for that, and many first-time buyers are waiting that it goes down, you may get a small bidding war later on, which is your $58 per month, which is... On the course of 5 years, it's just over $3,000 of savings. You may pay the property for much more. I don't know how it goes out there.
Let's segue into that, bidding wars, which is another topic that we had going on in this list. We've obviously seen things heat up a lot in Toronto, in Vancouver. A lot of the news publications are stating that multiple offers are back and they're exciting and they're hot. In Montreal, I would say that we're seeing some multiple offer situations, 100%. But buyers are staying very conservative. It's actually been very refreshing to see. It's no longer I'm going to give you all sorts of money for your property. It's, I'm interested, but these are still my terms and conditions. And I think I've seen probably about 6 of them in our office, and nobody's gone over asking. Or I think $500 over asking, $500, no more than that, on a $100,000, So people are very much slow playing it, and we're seeing multiple offers, but people are sticking to their guns, and they're very much, if it's not this one, it'll be the next one.
My question with like bidding wars is it's very different in Canada versus in the US, right? In the US, you can see what the other offers are, if I'm not mistaken.
So you can't always see. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But they have this thing called an escalation clause.
Gotcha.
Which is really interesting because I can put in a bid. Let's say, Robin, you bid $400,000 and I put an initial bid of $350,000 with an escalation clause going up in $2,000 increments up to $430,000.
Okay.
And then the broker receives both. He's like, oh, I can go all the way to $402,000 on this one to outbid your $400,000 technically.
Gotcha. Like here, I knew when we bought our house, there were multiple offers. We saw it before the open house and put an offer in right away. They did the open house anyway. And we were nervous that we weren't going to get it because we knew it was a multiple offer situation. We weren't sure. So we increased our offer by 10 grand just because we really wanted to make sure we got it. And then because I'm silly, originally the light fixtures weren't supposed to be included. There were these gorgeous, like old school Edison bulb style light fixtures. I said, we'll increase our offer by 10K, but I want the light fixtures. And they accepted our offer. And now I have beautiful light fixtures in my home, but good luck finding Edison bulbs, guys. When one burns out, it's not like you can just go to the corner store. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin, that's LJ, that's Fred. Do we want to do a quick real estate market update before we go to traffic, LJ?
So we can touch base 100%. So like I was mentioning, the market has definitely been active. We've seen a lot more transactions in February, like we discussed a couple weeks ago. March has been a pretty exciting month as well. Other than spring break does typically slow us down for a week, we're still seeing a lot of volume, a lot of transactions, a lot of buyers who are backing out, a lot of people who got pre-qualified, I believe, or pre-approved right now.
Of course.
So we're seeing a lot of action right now. It's been very exciting, and we're seeing a lot more inventory. We've been listing properties every single week, and more inventory to feed the new buyers that are coming back into the market has really kept things relatively balanced, which is why we're not seeing a huge swing one way versus the other. But it's been an exciting market to be a part of after the last 12 months that we lived last year,
Exciting. I have a question totally unrelated, and we didn't discuss this ahead of time, so I'm throwing you guys a curveball. There's a house that's like near where my daughter goes to daycare. It has been for sale with a sign in the front lawn since she started going to that daycare last summer. And that feels like a really long time for a house to be on the market. And I was getting nosy, and I went on Centrist to look it up, and I expected to see, when they put the X through it, that the price has dropped. It hasn't. I'm curious, why does that happen?
I don't know. Usually when a property is on the market for so long, I always say they must have one or two problems. Either the price, it's not the right price, or the property could have some defect, That's what I usually, when a property is there for a long time, there's a reason behind it.
That's one of the biggest problems. When a property's been sitting on the market for a while, you start to have lack of consumer confidence, right? So people are saying to themselves, what's wrong with this house? What am I not seeing? Is it just the price? Is it that there's all sorts of repairs that I don't know about? Is it that there's mold in the attic? Is it that, God forbid, there was drugs that were produced in the property at 1%? Was there criminal activity? Did somebody happen to pass away in the home?
Oh my God.
So people's minds really go down a rabbit hole of possibilities. And this is why pricing a property correctly is so important, because once you go past that kind of 3, 4, 5, 6 months on market, everybody's thinking, what is the problem with this home? And it's not going to sell unless you make a critical adjustment at that point.
Cool. That satisfied my curiosity. And now I'm wondering what happened with that house. 12:15 is the time. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. Coming up, do you still need to get home insurance if you're renting? The answer is probably pretty obvious on that one.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robin Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
This is your lingo lexicon on Under One Roof MTL. Property tax. Property taxes are taxes levied by municipal governments on property owners, usually based on the assessed value of the property. For the most part, property tax bills are received on an annual basis and are either paid in one shot, or most municipalities will allow you to split your tax bill up into installments. The money collected by municipalities from property taxes goes to fund things like municipal services and infrastructure. This has been your lingo lexicon.
You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. The time right now, 12:21, beautiful and sunny outside. I'm Robin Flynn with Fred Pichette and LJ Aguinaga. Our guest right now is someone we're very excited to have on the show because this is something that I think absolutely everybody could benefit from. Whether you're a homeowner or a tenant, having insurance isn't just a good idea, it's a necessity, especially if you're a homeowner, especially if you're a tenant too. Most lenders require proof of insurance in order to secure financing, and while renter's insurance isn't mandatory in Quebec, it's very strongly recommended. So what kind of coverage do you need, and what do you need to know about your options? Curtis Killen is president at KBD Insurance, and he joins us now. Hi, Curtis. How are you?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Let's start with renter's insurance. I used to rent, and I rented for like 10 years, and I never had renter's insurance the entire time because I was a young kid in her 20s and I didn't know any better. What are the benefits of having renter's insurance, though? And like, what should be your budget when you're looking for renter's insurance?
The big thing for renter's insurance is the fact that it's not so much, yes, it protects your stuff against fire, but the big thing is if you cause damage to a third property, aka the landlord's building. So sometimes, let's say, for example, you accidentally leave the stove on and you cause a fire. They could theoretically come back after you, sue you for the damages that you caused. So that's what a small tenant insurance policy, that's the big thing that it's going to cover. And if you're looking at price, I mean, there's two ways. If you want to get like the full package, fire, theft, vandalism, glass breakage, all that kind of stuff, you're probably looking at anywhere from $30 to $50 a month. And if you want to get just the minimum, like just the liability insurance, you're probably looking, it can go as low as $20 a month.
That's it? I thought it was going to cost a fortune. That's why I didn't do it. I was like, I can't afford this.
It's really affordable. It's super quick. It's super fast. Like it's a very easy product to purchase. And I definitely recommend, if you are a tenant living in Quebec or anywhere for that matter, that you should definitely be carrying a tenant insurance.
Curtis, do you think renter's insurance should be legally required?
I don't know if it should be legally required, but it's definitely a good idea to have. You're getting into kind of like the laws and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have renter's insurance, it's kind of like your own fault, you know. I wouldn't make it a law, but yeah, some people would. But I'm not one of those people that would make it a law.
For context, I make it a requirement on all of my properties and anything I manage.
And landlords, it's totally within their right to require
100%.
it, right? The same way your lender can require a homeowner's insurance, right? Very interesting. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. We're in conversation with Curtis Killen, president at KBD Insurance. Let's move over to homeowners and discuss different coverage options available for homeowners. It's like a full interview process when you're on the phone with someone, right, to determine what's best. So, you know, how do you decide what's best for you in your situation?
The big thing is just making sure that you have the right amount monetary, like you're insuring it for the right amount. So you can look anywhere from, if you have the square footage for your building, that's a very important metric to know. If you look at the square footage of the building, and like you're looking at anywhere from probably $280 to $300 per square foot to rebuild. So a lot of people also too, you need to realize that you need to realize that there's a difference between the market value and the actual cash value for the house. So, but yeah, like when you're shopping around for home insurance, there's questions. If it's a brand new house, it's a lot easier. But for example, if it's over 40 years, you should know things like when was the last time the roof was done, what's the plumbing, what's the electrical, were the windows done. Yes, it's kind of a little bit annoying, but here's the good thing: if you're buying a new house, everything's going to be included in the inspection report. So sometimes we act just to make it easier for the clients. We'll actually just be like, hey, do you want to just send us the inspection report? We'll look at everything. We'll have all the information there, as opposed to just keeping someone on the phone for 45 minutes.
That's super helpful. I mean, that's what I ultimately do with all of my clients. We'll sit down and go through that the inspection report and be able to answer a lot of those questions. Yeah. Curtis, a lot of the time I have clients will call me up and say, hey, LJ, I just received a 7 or a 13% increase on my insurance policy. Is this quote unquote normal? And I always try to kind of listen to them, hear them out and say, you know what, it can be a lot of different factors. Can you just run us through what do these increases represent? If there's been no claims, if there's been no material change, how does this happen?
It's just a game insurance companies play. It's the exact same thing as kind of internet. You know, sometimes, or your cell phone bill, you're like, hey, nothing changed. Why all of a sudden, you haven't looked at it for 3 years, then you look back at it, you're like, what the heck? It's double the price of 3 years ago. So it's kind of the same idea. But, so number one, you should absolutely shop around every once in a while. You should be aware of how much you're paying, or at least just call the insurance company or insurance broker you're working with to kind of go over the policy. That's number one. Number two, just like everything else in life right now, inflation is a big thing. So the cost of materials, the cost of labor, it's just more expensive to make the repairs. We have more catastrophic losses. What that means is there are, like, the data is clear. There are more storms, there are more tornadoes, there are more hurricanes, more mudslides. And unfortunately, how insurance works, like if someone in Florida is paying for that hurricane, it does affect us up here in Montreal, and it's also going to affect everyone internationally. So it's just, there's a lot of things, absolutely, LJ, that go into basically making the price, but that's a couple of the factors why home insurance rates can, they've definitely gone up over the past 5 to 10 years.
Curtis, another good question, because it's happened a lot that people own a condo and they decide to rent it out and move on to purchase a property. What should they do with the condo in terms of the insurance? Should they call the insurance company to let them know?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, absolutely. And it's actually not very expensive either. But yes, absolutely. If you have a rented dwelling, you should have liability insurance on it, and you should definitely be insuring the condo as well. Like, absolutely. And sometimes, like, it's always better to be safe than sorry. If you're making a material change in your life, whether you're renting out a dwelling, you're renting out a house, buying a new apartment, just worst case, you'll call the insurance company or just shoot them an email. We get clients that do that all the time. Hey, by the way, this is my new situation. And half the time it's like, okay, good, nothing changed. We just put a note in the file. But sometimes things do change. And then if there's a claim, the client goes, well, hold on. Why isn't this covered? And we're like, well, you're renting the dwelling. It's a completely, it's a big change in material risk. So always, the point I'm trying to make, always better to be safe than sorry. When in doubt, just give your insurance company or insurance broker a call.
Wrapping up with Curtis Killen, president at KBD Insurance. One last question for you, Curtis. Climate change, it's something that's affecting everybody. We're coming up on spring, which means we're going to be hearing about flooding. It's becoming more and more common, even freezing rain, knocking trees down onto your property. What can you do to make sure you're protected from these kinds of events? You don't want to have something happen. You call your insurance provider and realize, oops, nope, I'm not covered for this.
So one thing, if there's hail, freezing rain, wind, that kind of stuff, you're automatically covered. One thing to check on your insurance policy, though, and so for all of those who are listening, check out if you have groundwater sewer coverage. That's what the name of the coverage is. Basically, like, it covers you for little floods that are in your basement. Absolutely important to have. And if you only have it for $10,000, $15,000, for example, I would highly recommend to put that up to at least $40,000. And also, too, if you live in areas like St. Lazare, some parts in Hudson, double check your sump pump. Consider getting a battery backup, maybe even a second sump pump, because when there's a big storm and the electricity goes out, your sump pump, if there's no battery backup, it's not going to work. So you're going to get a flood in the basement. So check out those things there. Those are some easy tips that people can use.
Awesome. Curtis Killen, president at KBD Insurance. How can people find out more about the products offered at KBD?
Super easy. Check us out, kbdinsurance.com. We have an office in the West Island in Dorval. We're just on the Trans-Canada. kbdinsurance.com. We're open from Monday to Friday from 8:30 till 6:30.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Curtis. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the sun.
Absolutely. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. Coming up, what role does a notary play in your home buying journey? We'll find out after the news.
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robin Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties. This is the Mortgage Minute.
What role does a notary have regarding a mortgage in Quebec? This is your Mortgage Minute. In Quebec, a notary plays a crucial role in the mortgage process, acting as a legal expert who ensures the transaction complies with all provincial laws. They are responsible for drafting and validating the mortgage deed, verifying the property's title, ensuring there are no outstanding liens, and confirming the identities of the parties involved. The notary also explains the terms and conditions of the mortgage to the borrowers, ensuring they understand their obligations. Additionally, the notary oversees the signing of the mortgage deed, registers the deed with the appropriate government authorities, and facilitates the disbursement of funds. Their responsibilities ensure the mortgage transaction is legally binding and executed properly, protecting the interests of all parties involved.
You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. I'm Robin Flynn with LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties and Fred Pichette from Fred and Martin Mortgages. You just heard Martin's voice. He's not in studio with us, but he's still part of the show, guys.
He is, of course.
Very big part of the show. We were talking about inflation a little bit earlier on in the show. We got a text from Joe. He says, "Hi, guys. Gas prices are going up, so inflation is going to creep back up." If that's true, does that mean interest rates won't start coming down?
So let's start off with the news that we got this week because we skipped over that earlier. So inflation was down to 2.8 for the month of February, which I thought was very exciting news because it's even lower than the 2.9 we saw in January.
Yep.
And expectations was that it was going to be above 3.2, 3.3. So it's a great sign in the right direction. What's currently holding up inflation is interest costs, realistically. That is what is really crushing us and keeping us as high as we are. So as soon as interest rates start to come back down, the expectation is that inflation will even come back further down. Will gas prices going up play a role in that? 100%. It's going to play a role in that. So we're going to see what is going to carry more of the balance right now and what's going to bring us in the right direction. Obviously, if we bring interest rates too far low, then there's going to be more spending, and obviously inflation will go back up again. So it's a very delicate balance that we're trying to strike right now. But I do believe that at this point, the only thing that will kind of get us back to that 2% threshold is a slow reduction of interest rates to bring us back to where we want to be.
Yeah, and the good news, LJ, is that 2.8% reading matched the lowest inflation rate since early 2021, which is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We're definitely in the right direction in terms of the rate cuts, to be honest. If it goes as fast as people want, probably not.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that interest rates coming down, inflation coming down means the price of everything is going to come down, and that's not going to happen,
That's
right?
a huge thing. Price of things are going to go up in price at a slower rate, and it's super important to differentiate that. We're not going to get back to the prices we were used to seeing 3-4 years ago. It's just not going to happen. Speaking
of which, we have a text here that says, can I ask, if you have a question, by the way, 514-800, you can text it in. Can I ask about our mortgage? Comes due in January 2025, so just under a year from now. We have a great rate right now of 2.85%. Yowza. When should we start looking for our renewal? And would you suggest going variable until rates come back down? Fred, what do you think?
Well, I think you would need first to look at your mortgage around September, October. Why? Because the first rate cut will probably come, as we said, in June, July. And 6 months prior to renewal date, I think it's the time to really look at it. Some people could look 9 months before, but I think it's too much. But 6 months before, it's a great time to look at it. Now, should you go variable or fixed? It's a good question. You know, I'm personally a big fan of variable rate, and I think the variable will go back lower than the fixed rate in the future. Again, it depends of your how could you manage the risk, let's say.
Yep.
But I would say variable is a good option.
One thing I find interesting in the way this question was worded was, would you suggest going variable until rates come back down? I don't think rates are going back down to 2.85% for a really, really long time, right, guys? That's what I've been hearing from economists anyway.
Yeah, so the question of waiting is such a delicate game to play. If you're concerned about that, then I'd almost say sign a 1-year rate if that's the game you want to play. But I think that by September, October, we're going to have a pretty good idea of where things are heading. And at that point, it might be even better to just take that 1-year rate if you do expect to keep trending in that direction before you lock in a 3 or a 5-year rate. I'm also a big believer of variable. I took it on my home, even though my wife wants to kill me from time to time. But it was definitely the decision that made the most sense to me at the time. And I do think that we're going to head back to a much better position with the variable rate. It's also important to note that a lot of economists have said that the money tightening policy that we're seeing and have been seeing, it takes months before we start to see the effects of it. So them reducing interest rates by 25 basis points is not going to do anything for the economy for probably 3 to 6 months. Until we really start to see even those larger increases, we're not going to feel the effects for a longer period of time. So it's all going to be, we'll see what happens in the future kind of thing.
Very similar question. Sorry, Fred, from Sharon. It's almost the same question. Should my mortgage comes up for renewal in July? I owe $90,000. Should I go variable? I feel like I know your answer to this.
I would say, Sharon, yes, I think you should go probably variable, but it depends of your, as I say again, if you want the same payment every month, I would say keep on a fixed rate. But again, variable would be a good choice. It's not a huge risk. Your balance, it's only $90,000. I would go variable.
I feel like it's less of a risk now to opt for variable than it was a year or 2 years ago when I chose to go variable.
It's because we're going to start seeing probably in June again a reduction on the overnight rate. Which
you could almost even suggest a fixed payment variable for her, because the expectation is for interest rates start coming down, and that means she's going to pay that mortgage down a lot faster because there's going to be more going to capital every single month as we start to get these decreases, right? So if the goal is to pay it off as quickly as possible and still have flexibility, that might be a great option.
That's a good option, LG, as long as it goes down. When it goes up, it's not the right option because you pay less towards the
Do we see
principal.
It going up from this point on?
No, I'm seeing right now it's going down. Absolutely.
That's it.
You were right.
Yeah, especially in Sharon's case, she says she only owes $90,000 left on the house, right? At this point, you are just trying to pay it down.
That's why I'm suggesting that.
Yeah. These guys are the experts, and that's why they make these suggestions and recommendations.
And again, I want to say to people, if you have to renew your mortgage and you're at a rate of 2.5, don't expect to see the interest rate back below 3%. It's not going to happen. Like, I think it's right now, it could be between 4 and 5 and maybe further on between 3.5 and 4. But again, we don't really know. But
you don't think there's going to be another once-in-a-lifetime pandemic happening?
I like to remind people that January 2019, rates were at 3.8. The 5-year fix was sitting at 3.8. That was a normal rate, and that just was very common for everybody. And we forget because we got spoiled with these 1.8, 2.8, 2.5, et cetera, for an extended period of time. But those high threes is very normal. I mean, historic average of interest rates is 5% for a 5-year rate.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's historic.
Yep.
So the fact that we're getting below that we're already at that rate right now and we're only trending downwards is a great sign, but we can't expect to get back to what we were.
You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. If you have questions for Fred or LJ, you can text them to 514-800. This question says, if I have a condo free of mortgage, wondering if I should look into title insurance. I read that it might not be necessary in Quebec. Love your show. Well, thank you.
I mean, in terms of title insurance, are you planning on selling the property right now? That really comes to the question. We only really need title insurance when we're going to sell a property, and title insurance is only there to cover if there's any irregularities in title. So did you potentially purchase the property from somebody who was handling an estate and not the right person was signing off on it? Was there a divorce case and the settlement hadn't quite finished yet at the time of the sale? And then, again, mishaps of that nature. Other things that could have happened would have been, condo's very weird, but it's usually on a single family home. Maybe you're encroaching on your neighbor's property, or on a condo, maybe you have a balcony that's overhanging on top of the city sidewalk, and the city could say, no, you're encroaching on our property at one point. So if you don't have any of these things that have changed, or you're not really worried about any title issues of that nature, it's not a requirement, so long as you have an up-to-date certificate of location.
Sorry, go ahead, Fred.
I really like what Helgi says, but I think I'm not 100% agree all the time with that, because if you want a peace of mind, and you never know, fraud are increasing a lot in the real estate market, I think a title insurance could, chances that something happened to your property are not that high. But again, when that happened and you don't have a title insurance, you could put yourself in real problem to get back your property under your name.
Makes a lot of sense. Guys, another topic right now that we saw in the news this week was that home buyers should jump into the market now. We've already talked extensively about the fact that interest rates are probably going to come down at least a little bit this summer. Even though it's only going to probably come down by a small amount, there's going to probably be a message to some people that now's the time to start buying property. Quebec City and Montreal already heating up in terms of real estate. Is now the best time to get in before the interest rates start to drop?
No.
Oh.
No, the best time was yesterday.
Oh.
But you missed that ship.
I see what you did there, LJ.
So always, and this is it. I mean, I still speak to some clients and they'll say, yeah, I'm still waiting for that crash. And I'm like, you're going to be waiting for a long time.
Crash.
Yeah, this
That's
crash.
drastic.
I was like, February 2022 was the lowest we got. We saw 10% dip in prices in Montreal, and other markets suffered a bit more than us, quite a bit more even, but we're on the uptrend right now. Prices are on the way back up very slowly, but they're definitely trending in that direction. And as soon as we lower interest rates, prices are only going to continue to go up even further. So now is the time to buy. Yesterday was obviously better, but now is the closest you can get to it.
I have to say 100% agree with you.
You guys agreed. Jeez. Okay. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. Still to come, which agency in Quebec is responsible for enforcing the province's residential tenancy laws?
Under One Roof MTL, hosted by Robin Flynn, featuring mortgage brokers Fred and Martin and real estate expert LJ Aguinaga. Presented by Fred and Martin Mortgages and LJ Realties.
You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJD 800. Before we get to our answer to our trivia question of the week, it's time for my favorite part of the week, our property of the week. LJ.
This week, I want to talk about 668 Liverpool Street in Point St. Charles. It's a completely renovated 2-bedroom, 1.5-bathroom home in the heart of Point St. Charles. Originally, it's converted from a duplex. This gem of a property has been completely redone with care and quality materials. Now a modern and stylish single-family home, this property boasts spacious rooms, a backyard, and a private parking spot with an electric car charger. Now, your favorite part, Robin.
Yeah.
My go-to coffee in the area has to be Molo Cafe, and I have several favorite restaurants in the area, but this week I'll choose to highlight Clark Cafe's signature sandwiches. If you haven't had one, go do yourself a favor and have one.
You know what? Montreal's sandwich scene is very underrated, to be honest. Yeah. When people talk about Montreal, they talk about great food, but lately, I don't know what it is, but...
Sandwich.
Oh, like, no matter whether it's Bossa, there's so many amazing options popping up on my feed now. It's just, everything looks delicious. Awesome.
Parma, yeah, there's several. Even LaSalle has a couple good ones.
Yeah. Verdun, if you're on like the Wellington.
Yeah. Of course, Boss is incredible. We order from them. They cater just about all of our events.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. Okay, now we're getting off track and I'm hungry. It is lunchtime though, so it's normal to be hungry right now. Okay, let's get to the answer to our trivia question of the week, brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. You can visit their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center, 3705 St. John's Boulevard in DDO. Which agency in Quebec is responsible for enforcing the province's residential tenancy laws? Meg was first to text in at 514-800 with the correct response. Le Tribunal Administratif du Logement, or the TAL, formerly known as the Régie du Logement, which is what we've all known it as for years and years and years. It changed fairly recently to the TAL. So if you hear people talking about the TAL in conversation and you didn't know what that was, now you know. We like to educate.
I think people know Régie du Logement more than anything.
Exactly. Régie du Logement is... Yeah, I remember my very, very first apartment. We're going to get off track a little bit here, but I want to share this story. My very first apartment, I moved in with somebody who was previously living there. They'd been renting for a while, and the landlord had passed away. So it was still in the estate stage. So I had to write my first rent check to the estate of a dead guy. That's how I paid my rent every month. And I remember I lived there for a year, and I paid his estate for a whole year. But I remember that was my first encounter with the Régie du Logement when I called them because I was 18 and I was like, is this normal that I'm paying rent to a dead person? Yes, it is normal. Very and it normal. Can happen and it can last a whole year while you're living there.
Even longer. I met with clients this week who took them 2.5 years to settle the estate.
Wow. Yeah. I have to say it's very weird to pay someone who's deceased. Just, it felt very strange to me. I don't know. I felt like I didn't have a landlord either because the person who was handling the estate didn't do anything. You know?
I mean, there's a person appointed who's the fiduciary and who's going to be in charge of the successor, if you will. Mm-hmm. But definitely, you just got to think about like you're paying a corporation, as if you were paying a John Doe Corp.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I also want to run through what we learned this week. Little quick recap for you. Basically, you should have bought a house yesterday. If you waited till today, it's too late. No, it's not too late. It's never too late. LJ can help you. He can help you figure it out. Fred can help you get pre-approved for your mortgage. Insurance is very important, whether you're a homeowner or a tenant. I had no idea renter's insurance was so affordable. Had I known, I would have taken out renter's insurance when I was renting. Probably not. I was 21. Also, don't stress about interest rates too much. It's going to come down this summer, but not by a lot. It's not going to make a huge difference. Get yourself pre-approved, right, Fred?
Exactly. A lot of people are waiting, and sometimes the best thing to do is take action. Get yourself pre-approved.
And what does the pre-approval, I'm again going off track, but what does the pre-approval process look like? Like, what kind of documents do you need to have? Because before they call you, they should probably have some of their ducks in a row.
Well, obviously, to make a real pre-approval, you need to back it up with documents, which is you have to verify the income, the down payment, and obviously running a credit check is always good if you don't know your credit, because these three are very important if you want to get home ownership.
You can even pay for like a monthly subscription to Equifax. I know I do because I worked really hard for a few years to rebuild my credit after destroying it in my 20s. So I had a monthly subscription. I was able to log in anytime I wanted and see what was going on in my credit report. I loved that. It was very helpful.
Easily once a week I spoke with client and they say, I don't know what's that, why it's in my credit report. I says, call Equifax, get that arranged because it's affecting your credit.
It happened to me a month ago. There
Really?
was a claim on my credit report because I was applying for a new loan on a building that we're buying or developing, and I was like, I don't recognize this. So right away the banker told me, and then I called them up and like, oh no, sorry, we put this. It shouldn't have been on your file. It should have been on somebody else's file because the name was similar.
Wow.
So mistakes like that happen all the time. They
course.
within a day sent me a letter, got it corrected, but you have to verify in order to know what's up.
If you're a self-employed individual, what kind of documents do you need to prove your income? I guess you would need some sort of like notice of assessment from the government or something.
Well, it starts with your T1 general, like your federal income tax. Obviously, if you write yourself a dividend, it goes with a T5. Or if you always pay a part of your income as an employee as well, you get a T4. And you have to average out the last 2 years. And agree with you, Robin, everything comes real with your notice of assessment.
Yeah.
Because the notice of assessment will confirm the declared income that you have.
I'm noticing a lot and more people, they are self-employed, but not necessarily like incorporated. Like they're almost like a full-time freelancer.
Enregistré.
Yeah. So, you don't necessarily pay yourself a salary. You have money that comes in, you pay your expenses, and you keep the rest. Yeah. How do you prove something like that?
Yeah, I would say speak to your accountant, but it's not really like that. You have to declare yourself either an income or a salary as an employee or a dividend in a way.
Okay.
It's all going to come up on your T1 general because essentially your T1 is going to show what the revenues were of this, then what the expenses that you're claiming were, and then that new amount is going to give you a net income, and that's what the bankers are going to use to qualify you.
And be careful if you're self-employed. If, I don't know, 2 years ago you declare 20,000 and all of a sudden you want to buy a property and you declare 80,000.
You're going to get audited.
Well, no, it's just a big
2 years.
discrepancy in the last 2 years, Try to always keep it like 10 to 15% increase every year. And then
it's not just that though, right? Because you also, I know you have a program for self-employed people who choose to not declare very much. They want to keep all the money inside the corporation.
Of course.
You have a program, if I'm not mistaken, that allows people to see what the bank deposits were. So if the corporation is actually rolling in funds, you can use that to qualify them as well.
Exactly, LJ. You're so right. Sometimes people keep the money in the corporation and they declare 30, 40, 50,000 a year, but it's not much if you want to qualify for a property at 600-700. Obviously, if you have some down payment and more than 20%, we could use the bank statement to qualify you, to help you. Obviously, we will go towards an alternative lenders to get you qualified, but it works.
That's pretty much it for us for this week. A reminder that Under One Roof MTL can be heard live every Sunday at noon right here on CJD 800. If you want to learn more about us and the show, you can visit our website at underoneroofmtl.com, and you can direct all of your mortgage and real estate questions to info@underoneroofmtl.com. LJ, where can people reach you if they want to get in touch?
Feel free to stop by my website, ljrealties.com. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter. My handle is LJ Aguinaga. Or for more information on our listings and my real estate team under the handle LJ Realties, you can also feel free to call or text me at 514-500-4040. And please, if you know anybody who's looking to become a real estate broker who wants to work in a team, we're looking for motivated, dynamic realtors to join the team.
Awesome. Fred, where can people reach you in Martin?
Well, if you have any question or mortgage need, feel free to reach out to us at fredandmartin.com.
That's the best spot
Best
to go.
way, fredandmartin.com.
Both of your email addresses and phone numbers are on the website. Yeah, everything you need is on fredandmartin.com. And if you're looking for somebody to run your social media, produce a podcast for you, you can learn more about the digital marketing services that I offer at robinflynn.com. If you missed anything, you can listen to the show in its entirety on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Most people listen on Spotify and Apple, but I know some people listen on Audible, which is part of Amazon Music, whatever.
You can find it on YouTube as well now.
You can find it on YouTube as well.
It's on my YouTube page.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I'm learning something new every day. I love it. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, who is not here today, I'm Robin. This has been Under One Roof MTL.